Good evening and welcome to Mindful Life 227. I am your host Nathan Springer. Thank you for being here. It is the 25th of the 5th in the year 2023. Thank you all for being here. I am streaming live right now on Instagram, on TikTok, and on YouTube. Make sure you double tap that screen or hit that like button. However you hit that like wherever you're viewing this. Over on YouTube too, yes, hit that like button. Drop a comment. Tell me what you think. It is Thursday, so you know we're talking on a Thursday. It's Thursday Talks. That's what we do on a Thursday. We're talking with the chat. And well, the talk of the week, the talk of the last 2 days has been someone with a name much like one of the very well-known archangels of biblical times. Someone with a name much like that has been running the route red. He has been proving the reality of hypergamy. Hypergamy meaning that it's the tendency for women to date across and up. They're looking for better, generally speaking. And what that causes, when you mix hypergamy with sexual liberation, with the freedom we have, good night Sylvan, Trinidad and Tobago, when you mix hypergamy with the sexual liberation of the last 50 or so years, what ends up happening is the reality that we get in the statistics coming down from most dating sites, where you have around 20% of men that are most attractive to 80% of women. So there's a small minority of men that are hooking up with a large majority of women. That's how the reality goes. That's the statistic that you so regularly hear, those red pillars. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the red pill manosphere out there in the internet.com, the cyberspace, the internet world. How many of you are familiar with that? But in the red pill space, that's something that those men regularly talk about. Now, to be honest, some of those men sometimes sound a little like, who hurt you, bro? A little bitter, but a lot of them complain about this fact that if you're a normal man out there, you know, you're a guy, you're 5'7", you know, you're no tall man out there, you're no red man out there, you ain't have no big set of money out there. It's a struggle. It is a struggle because the average woman, although she is average just like you, she isn't looking for an average guy. The average woman is looking for the best guy. All of the women are looking for the best guy. And now if the best guy just so happens to be a wayward guy, he can take a lot of liberty with that position he finds himself in. And it seems like this one individual did just that. And as I was pointing out, to me, most of the girls in the videos, many of them looked kind of ashamed to be there. To me, if I were to throw my opinion over this video and put my opinion on what I think some of the girls in those videos were saying, they look like they knew who the guy was. Like, I mean, some of the videos, he was literally kissing multiple girls inside of the car. I mean, it's not like he was hiding his playboyness. So it's like they knew he was a playboy, but I'm willing to risk it still. Well, you risked it, and that's the consequence. That's the consequence. In reality, for much of mankind's history, the funny thing is the good loyal guys end up in the friend zone and want big money. Well, so it goes. Part of the thing that created this was sexual interaction became a secret. For most of human history, sexual interaction wasn't really a secret, you know. The person that you were in intercourse with was the person you were in a long-term relationship with, and it was kind of hard to hide it on the woman's side because pregnancy was pretty easy to come by. There weren't a whole lot of contraceptives on the market, but now with the amount of contraceptives on the market, what has effectively happened is people's sexual business has remained private. Now your business is your business. But previously, when your business was the village's business, when your business was the community's business, and bet your bottom dollar it's going to be the village's business, because remember, you need the village to raise the child. So if you go out there and bring home a child, it's the village have to raise the child. So the village is monitoring your bedroom business. That's how history had it. But now that has changed. So no one is in each other's private bedroom business. People are able to do what the secret desires of their heart, and now we're seeing that. We're seeing just that. And when everyone knew your business, the way a lot of this was kept in check is through shame and embarrassment. I was reading a feminist article recently, not a feminist article, a feminist paper I was reading a feminist paper recently where they were talking about the patriarchal power, but also the power that women had in pre-industrial societies. And feminism wasn't a movement of progress, it was a movement of reaction to industrial society. Industrial society made men more powerful, but that's not the point. The point is women had certain powers in pre-industrial societies. Most of the times the social pressures were pretty much orchestrated by women. So the shaming part, the social pressure, if you get pregnant out of wedlock, the people that are going to shame you are the women. That's the part that women, that's the role that women fulfilled in most societies. And that's what kept a lot of this in check. None of those girls would have gone out, well, fewer of those girls would have gone out there if every time such thing happened, the chance of pregnancy was very high. But it's a different dispensation we live in presently. Wetback says, but it have women that do the same exact thing just in reverse, and they even married and doing it. Wetback, that is not totally true. That is not totally true. Very, very, very few women live the life that man is living. Very few. And very likely, if any of them do, they will be paid to do it. Yo, Callan. Very likely they will be paid to do it. Men and women are not the same. What men and women want out of relationships isn't exactly the same either. Like, I think that's part of the problems we get in modern times, where a lot of people were taught for years in their schooling, etc., or given at least the impression that men and women are the same. And a lot of what we desire, a lot of what we go for, how we do things is very similar, or if not the same. And we are not exactly the same. We are not exactly the same. So, no, there are not many women doing exactly what that man is doing, because there aren't many women who want to do exactly what that man is doing. Like, seriously, sit down with a woman and ask a woman if her dream is to have 20 random men per month inside. Like, I don't want to get more graphic than that, but no, that's not the dream of the average woman. No. So, no, that's not as prevalent as some people like to think. I don't have much experience on this topic, so I'm a student tonight, Sylvan said. So I suppose you're not one of those guys proving hypergamy out there. You're someone that is looking for a bit more stability. And this is the point that I regularly make when I talk about this red pill stuff, though, where it seems like, okay, there's one side where you point to the reality that if someone is a high value man, that they would have access to more women. Yes, that is just reality. But it seems like some people encourage young men and a young generation of men that are growing up to think that what I am aiming for is to become wealthy enough, to become high value enough to do that. Like, that's the aim. Well, that's not a good aim. It's not a stable aim. It's not an aim that leads to success in the end. So, I went to boys' schools and I have no game. Boy, I not buying that. I not buying that. Like, the guys that gone to boys' schools have no game. If a woman eat that chain up, I am sorry for her. But sis, if he went to a boys' school, he probably have more game than the guys that went to the co-ed schools. You think guys in boys' schools sit down and talk about other boys all day? I mean, it's not like they talk necessarily about the girls all day, but don't try that, Sylvan. Him and says a lot of people have no morals and standards, no moral compass. Signs of the time. Yes, I agree. A lot of people have no morals and no moral standards, but part of it also, the part I was highlighting there is that many people thought they would have escaped with it. Why do you think a lot of the girls were hiding their face? It's not like they were proud of what they were doing. So that seems to suggest that there is some kind of moral standard in their mind, a moral standard that they are failing to meet. The reason they are ashamed, the reason you feel shame in a case like that is because you in your mind have a moral standard that you know you are not meeting. That's why you're feeling ashamed. That has nothing to do with anybody else. You know in your mind that's what's going on. But the reason they were willing to do it is because they thought they would have gotten away. Listen, I wonder if you could ask all the girls in that video, if you could ask them if they knew that one video was going to leak if they would have gone out with the guy and they would have done whatever they did. And I would assume that probably the majority of them would say just the fact of the video leaking is enough to say, I would have never done it if I knew. So it's not just about the low morals, because they're not proud of what they were doing. If someone has no morals, then you would be proud of it. You wouldn't think it's wrong. But I think we have skewed morals. We have skewed morals, and that's the problem. We aren't keeping up with the morals that we believe in. A lot of people on social media buy into some of the modern liberation ideals, and they may live some of it, but I think on the inside their morals haven't switched to that, so they don't even live up to their own morals. Good night, Tony the Ambassador. Honestly, the guy should have been more responsible with them. I don't know why he didn't secure them. Well, Navindra, bro, the guy wasn't a responsible guy. Like, yes, he should have been more responsible. But it's like, okay, to go in victim blaming. Oh, jumping, Trini Otep, jumping. Sorry about that. In victim blaming, the reason that victim blaming is a thing is because you can't blame the perpetrators. They don't care. Like, I'm not knocking the guy necessarily. The guy is living his life by his ideals. But within his ideals, it doesn't seem like that kind of consideration is extremely high. I mean, bro was out there with no jersey on. he didn't put on a jersey, and he was living this random life, going into random buildings with no clothing on, walking into random buildings without clothing to keep you secure from what is inside of some of those random buildings, is living dangerously. So evidently homeboy wasn't very high on the caring and responsibility level thing. I mean, it wasn't preeminent in his mind when he was making those decisions. So you can't, not that you can't, you could blame him, and it's up and it's on him for those choices, but it's nearly like you have a hungry lion there. And okay, maybe we don't want a lion that is just eating people. Okay, that's bad. But at the same time, if you walk within the vicinity of the hungry lion, I mean, as much as we don't want it to happen, you must expect it at the same time. Wait, is a health and safety issue we talking about, or a bad mind issue? Listen, RL, I am reading tonight. I am not reading in between the lines. If you can catch in between the lines, by all means read it. I am not getting much more specific. Going in the random buildings with, yes, Afimi Moses. Yes, Massimo, originally topic tonight. Well, it's Thursday Talks. We're talking. Initially, we started off talking here about the guy who, it was revealed this past week here, apparently was attempting to rack up some really high numbers, and it all came out to the public. We were talking about that bit of information just now. Positive Radiation says money talks. Well, yes, it most certainly does. It most certainly does. And are you willing to be embarrassed for that money? Positive Radiation, as I said earlier, a point that I made earlier in this, I find it's very interesting to compare and contrast the $200 date man and the Spisa Bacchanal. Like, I willing to bet $200 date man doesn't have a phone full of all your secrets. $200 date man is not going to reveal your deep dark secrets to the world. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. So we have to have a balance. Yeah.
But Nathan, but Nathan, let me be real. Because like when I first saw this story break, in the back of my head, because in the back of my head I was like,
good night, Lucky.
Somebody about to reference 200 a day, and I scrolling through TikTok, Nathan, and all I'm seeing is I seen video after video talking about all it was costing only $200. Now look what's going on. See, listen, I gonna do that thing. I hold my corner because I didn't really want to make no video about it necessarily, but it's true. It's true too. And yes, I agree. Hypergamy is a thing that has always existed. But how I speak about it is very different. The way how, and you explained it good, by the way, because the way how it's in a modern era, it tends to show up is that women want to sort of like either jump like over the mountain. So they want to go from average to Jeff Bezos. Or they want to go with what is the modern zeitgeist of the man who have the most social clout, but he's still under the underbellies of society. And that's technically how it kind of goes today. And I've been trying to tell people that for like past 2 days. But you know what I'm saying? They tell me, don't tell them that, don't say nothing. And
I factor in this. Like some people were saying that Homeboy leaked this and he was bad mind against the girls and he did it on spite. But no. From the time I glimpsed some of the initial videos, I was like, no way Homeboy leaked this on himself, because there are videos there of him allegedly firing what seems to be a device that is capable of releasing tiny implements with gunpowder. But I don't think Aban would release that to the public of his own account. So I don't think he did it. But what that does see is, for those young ladies in the video, if we're wondering in Trinidad and Tobago, how come there are so many bad men in Trinidad and Tobago? There are so many bad men in Trinidad and Tobago because there are over 80 young ladies who would give them the forward for being a bad man. You understand?
That's the truth.
So
that's the truth.
You look at that, and I regularly make this point, and I'm not saying that you blame women for criminality of men. By no means. A man being a criminal is on the man. But on a societal level, when we're looking at solutions on a societal level, not on the individual level, I'll say it again, on the individual level, the man is at fault. If he's a criminal, he's a criminal. On a societal level, what men aim at is almost always selected to some extent by the woman. If no woman in the society goes with a criminal man, the motivation to be a criminal would be very little. If you look at jobs where very few women want a man in that job, very few men want that job too. It's just how it goes. So, if you see that level of criminality, especially in young men, that's because there's a culture of criminality between the sexes, across the sexes, where many young men are getting the opposite sex forward from being that kind of bad man criminal nonsense. So, while you could blame the pesty young men, while you could blame them, watch your daughters too. See who they're giving their attention to. Lucky says, go to the head of the class. Why, thank you, sir. I like that position. Massimo says, are we talking about the tape leaks fiasco? Well, it wasn't only those kind of tapes, it was all kind of tapes. And that's the next part. You know, I was reading this a while back on the era of pickup artists. I don't know how many of you were on the internet so long, but from like the early 2000s on the internet had a lot of pickup artists on the internet. Pickup artists was a kind of internet niche area. They would go into clubs, they would go into parks, yada, 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 yada. Now, a lot of them deleted their content somewhere 2012, 2013, when some of the websites started cracking down on bad behavior. Because what a lot of the pickup artists used to do is they would go and talk to a lady in a club, dance with her, and maybe kiss her, might make out, and then they would walk out the club with the lady holding her arm, and then cut the video there, making it seem, suggesting to anyone looking at the video that, you know what happened next. Of course, while it's not actually what happened. In fact, the most of the times it's not what happened. So, in this same video that was released there, okay, there was some of the content that was very explicit, but some of it was just sitting in a car. Now, the suggestion seems to be that anyone seen in any of the videos were also in explicit positions too. And that's not even necessarily true. Some of the videos, he didn't even hug the man, he didn't even hug the girl. Some of them, he didn't even hug the girl. Next thing, some of them, a girl see the man in a club and just talk to him, and he take a video, hey, what you hear? And poor girl. That's why things like this, I to jump in specifics, I'm gonna be pointed, like, you have to be real careful in things like this. Captain Django says good girls like bad guys, nothing new under the sun. I don't believe that. If you like bad guys, you're not a good girl by definition. Afimi Moses says facts, there's a video of a young lady that even confirm what you just said concerning the bad man flick.
No, but the thing is, Nathan, sure, like, there is a nuanced discussion to that, right? And I think, yes, like, a little bit critical thinking people would obviously, but for most people, the social perception is just what it is, right? Once they see the person doing one particular thing, everybody that's affiliated with that one person, off rip, everybody involved. And sure, that's just a normal human response. I would want to see, you know. So I would say, bro, like, oh God, let me be real. The man have a bevy of women. You don't have to sleep with all the women. I like that adjective. That adjective seems like it was pulled out of the 60s. He has a bevy of women. Yeah. No, yeah, a bevy of women. And all it takes is one action with one of the women, and all women in every picture video with him implicated by right. And that is how it does go. So any girl could come out right now and say, I wasn't in that and I wasn't that. That don't get your argument and your friends get beat down.
Yep.
Prosecution win the case a long time.
Yep.
I mean, it's sad, but that is reality.
It is. And Lucky, here's the problem, I think. Here's where the problem is, I believe. I think girls are supposed to like bad man, or what they're looking for in bad man. I don't think that some of those girls necessarily like the bad man, but they like something they see in the bad man, and because they probably in some cases didn't have a good image of proper masculinity growing up, they see a glimmer of what they think is strong masculinity in the bad man, and they hold on to that. What they're looking for is strong competence, confidence and strong competence. That's what they're looking for actually. And psychopaths, narcissists, bad men, they are able, well, not able, but what they do closely mimics that. As a bad man, you look confident, you look competent, and you look strong. So you display those characteristics that look attractive. And I think that's the importance of good men and good masculinity in society. You're supposed to be able to teach your daughters, teach the young ladies that, okay, that looks like proper masculinity, but actually it's problems. It's a twist on the masculinity that you're looking for. What you're looking for is the competence, confidence, and power without the psychopathy. You don't want that. Stay away from the narcissist. You're looking for those things. You have to be able to see and pass in between those things. But some young ladies who are, it's like the young men. It's one thing feeding into the other. Young men who don't have an accurate impression of what good masculinity is are faking masculinity, and young women are looking at the faked masculinity and thinking it's real masculinity and buying that nonsense. So the young men faking masculinity and being bad men out there, and the young women looking at the fake masculinity and being attracted to it and liking the bad men out there. Nonsense. Who determines positive radiation says just now, positive radiation says who determines what is good masculinity? Okay, well, how I would define that. Good would be actions that go in the direction of long-term betterment. And if you want to figure out what is betterment, it's what is good for people on the longest time frame. So that's my definition of good for just about anything. What is beneficial for someone on the longest time frame? So what is good masculinity is what will be beneficial for the man and his family on the longest time frame. And I don't think that's something difficult to find out. I think you could look through history, you could look through cultures, you could study those things, and there are some traits that are pretty obvious that they are positive and beneficial for the man who possesses the trait and for his family and legacy through time going on with that same trait. So that's what I would consider good masculinity to be. What's that you were saying, Trini Hotep?
No, I was saying what's wrong with liking a man like Machiavelli? Yeah. Some women would actually say that, by the way, you know what I'm saying, because, you know, he possessed the machinations for manipulation. But no, you're right. Pseudo-masculinity seems to be a very kind of appealing thing nowadays. You know what I'm saying? Like, it is very appealing. And since, I would also want to say, since today men are not as masculine as they used to be, because of modern day society, the men who display pseudo-masculinity or hyper-masculinity, they sort of be center stage because they only playing up certain things that look in a particular way appealing. So they get all the shine, and you know what I'm saying, the men who somewhat try to portray masculinity get shunned to the back burner, but that's just about it.
Jaron, I don't believe you in it, because you're a tall man out here. You a mama guy, none of the young ladies inside of my chat. Young ladies, there's a tall man. Don't take the chin up, making it seem like he's struggling out there. Don't take that chin up. They call that playing dead to catch Kobo alive. Don't be the Kobo, young ladies. Do not be the Kobo. Sylvan Trinidad, you are 100% right. Yes, it is also beneficial to the community and to the wider society and to the nation and to the world. 100% right on that. Ariel says different cultures like different kinds of men. That is kind of true, but not kind of true at the same time. Like, I don't believe in multiculturalism in the full sense where all cultures are equal. I don't believe that. I think there are some cultures that are regressive. Some cultures are bad. They don't work. They don't work on the long-term time scale. So if we're looking at cultures that are positive and generally work on longer time scales, the version of man that is preferred in cultures that actually work is very similar, is pretty much the same guy. Massimo Original over on Instagram says, sure, there may be a lot of results that may have benefits that most persons may desire over a long time period. However, there may be disadvantages to all actions, so what is good is difficult, and how that is approached is probably even more important. I understand what you're saying about the negative externalities of being good, and that's the point I am making. I am saying that I think there are actions that are, Massimo says, for example, should we look internally for good or at fallible beings, or externally for a godlike figure with infallible rules? All right, you're going into an in-depth conversation there, Mr. Massimo, but to just browse at that and dive back in, what I would say at that is the very definition of what God is your definition of what is good. What is good, what is God is at the top of your priority list. And what is good should be at the top of your priority list. Now, to me, I don't believe in atheists. I believe everyone has a God. Your God is the thing at the top of your priority list. Whatever is the main driving force behind how you make decisions, that's your God. And everyone must have that, because there are infinite decisions you could make on a given day, but yet you decide to do a limited number of things. What do you base making those decisions on? Right. Whatever is at the top of that priority list, that's what I would consider that. And if you're talking about good, Massimo, in that term, I would say, if you're looking for good, what you want to place there is the ultimate good. The thing that would be most good for the most people for the longest period of time is what is at the top there, God. Alright. Ariel says, I always say we should have a whole session just discussing religion. That could get real wild. Tony the Ambassador says, when it comes to manhood and womanhood, there's a need for elders to teach our young men and women. Thank you, Tony the Ambassador. That is exactly it. The continuance. I think we're missing the continuance, where I think the elders did an injustice to some of the other. Jaron, you're actually right. You go wake up. The child is actually 100% right. But
yeah,
I get a little backup. I get a little backup to push you back to sleep in the same second. But yeah, 100% right. I think that's what we're missing. And if you look at successful cultures, you look at many of those Asian cultures, and I understand Massimo might take me up on that over on Instagram, and what's your definition of success and all of that. We're talking monetarily by and large here. Cultures that are able to gain resources and hold it in the family for the longer period of time. Cultures like that, when you watch how they are able to do that, it's through succession. And the continuance from the elder to the next generation, to the next generation, to the next generation. You have that succession tendency. When you have the chop up of the lessons that the elders learn, they don't teach to the younger generations, you end up in problems. And I find this one could stop some problems. But you see, some of the older women, you're lying to the youths. You're lying to the young girls, them. Insaf says, I don't believe in religion, but I believe in that one God, the creator. Positive Radiation says, Nathan, I find this life is gender bias. Where are the women? So that's not my fault. My life is open to the public. If women, and there are women, you know, this here, right here, Positive Radiation, what you said right there is part of the problem in sometimes how we look at things. There are 55 people inside of the TikTok chat right now, and maybe 4 men are talking the most. Maybe look, Shakila Noel, just jump in. We're talking all kind of things, Shakila, all kind of stuff. It's Thursday Talks. Whatever is the topic of discussion inside of the chat is what we're talking about right now. I'm not sure exactly where we're at. We'll pick up. But yeah, so it's not necessarily that they aren't women, but this here is a social experiment showing that by and large, men are the more confrontational and willing to put themselves out there people. You want to know why men make more? Why men make more on the job? Because more fellas in the chat typing.
You see, you're going along a road. Let stop. Because you're trying to bring up the feminism, but I'll say, by that.
Massimo says, assuming their fate is at the top of their value chain collectively, true, I think that is an a priori truth. However, if a society embraces ritualistic sacrifice, for example, which may have the supposed good of purging the society of perhaps those against their fate, is that good? No, it's not good, because I believe there could be objectivity in this. I think you could look at this and see if you are murdering someone, that is objectively not good. You are hurting someone, quite literally. I would say so. Trinidad have feminists, RL asks, Yes, Trinidad does. Quite a few actually.
I don't understand.
Quite a lot actually. So if you don't know about Trini feminists, go to UE. Go to UE. There are some there. Jazz says what you have to say about the people spreading sickness and why is it not a law to prevent this? I'm not sure what sickness you're talking about there, Jazz. I'm not sure exactly what you're talking about there.
Oh, jeez.
But if someone is purposefully spreading a sickness, those are difficult things to legislate. They're very difficult to legislate. In fact, in California, they did the reverse. They actually passed a law in California, was that last year or year before, that made it illegal, I believe, to have to disclose your HIV status or to demand someone disclose their HIV status or something like that. Because what they didn't want is they didn't want to pressure people so that people would feel stigmatized and wouldn't go and get tested. So they made it that you don't have to reveal these. But those things are just difficult to legislate. Like, how would you know if someone is doing it on purpose? How would you know that? How are you going to...
Yeah, that's
any law that gets into the sexuality of mankind gets real technical. The United States is finding that out the hard way. They tampered with some of their sexuality laws and now they don't know where to stop. Everything in America is lawsuit. Yep. So you're feeling hurt? I must... Bro.
that's the...
I am pretty sure, just by the way, people, just by the way, I am pretty sure accusing someone of spreading a deadly disease could be considered as defamation. Just by the way.
Yeah. So,
just by the way.
But Nathan, that goes for everybody today because I've been on TikTok today. I've been on many lives today, and people were making real claims about forcefully giving certain diseases to people, and that could really go down as defamation. My boy have paper, my boy could really run some good lawyers.
Hey, Jazz. As far as I know, non-reactive means negative. Now, disregarding that, speaking about scientific things, this is listen, people were sued about that in Trinidad, you know. Bear in mind, the West Indies Players Association chairman or something, Dinanat Ramdial, sued one of the Trinidad and Tobago cricket board members and make some millions off of that. Rowley making millions, like every year he makes a couple 100,000 off of defamation lawsuits. But this is Trinidad. People do sue about that in Trinidad and they do win. Be very careful. But yes, if you are aware, you must disclose your status. Just by the way, on that one, what the reason they don't want to implement things like that as law, Sylvan, too much. If you are aware, you must disclose your status. Then that kind of encourages the most promiscuous people to not be aware. That's why they say they don't want to implement some of those things. But yes, as I was saying on the scientific side, you don't generally prove a negative, you know. You don't prove a negative. You could prove a positive, but you can't prove a negative. You could just not be positive. You don't see any proof of positive, but that doesn't prove a negative. That's just how it works by and large in science. So like a pregnancy test. If you're positive, okay, you're pregnant. If you're negative, that doesn't say you're not pregnant necessarily. That says that the test doesn't pick up that you're pregnant. And that's kind of how most scientific tests go. So non-reactive in a scientific test is by and large the same thing as negative. It's like decriminalizing with marijuana, where people talk about, marijuana not legalized, just decriminalized. Well, okay, but if it was made criminalized and it was decriminalized, you don't need to legalize it. You just remove it from being a criminalized thing. You don't need to legalize it, Real cracks in the system for crime to happen could buy a license. What it is to... Listen. Listen, I don't know. Like, and I don't even know why that is the assumption. Like, where's the proof for that assumption? I find that so strange, the way someone would hear an allegation with zero proof and would hold on to the allegation even in the face of proof otherwise and no proof of the allegation. That's kind of strange to me. That's kind of like there's nothing to even remotely suggest the other thing. Why? Lyndon Smith says under the Offenses Against the Person Act, it is an offense to knowingly spread a disease. What I was saying, Lyndon Smith, is that those things are nearly impossible to prosecute. How do you prove that someone knowingly spread the disease? Well, you know what they say, there are some truth in rumors. Not necessarily, Jazz. Not necessarily. It doesn't work like that necessarily. And spreading those rumors are such I find it to be such an unnecessary and harmful thing. I find it to be such an unnecessary and harmful thing. Like, why spread that rumor? It adds nothing to it. Those things those things I don't understand. I don't understand those things.
That is how it is, man.
By virtue of not telling your partner of your status. Yes, Lyndon Smith, and that's if you know your status. That's if you know your status. Z Grade says he won't be able to remove that stain. Worse yet, women know he does tape. Well, Z Grade, you would be surprised. I am confident that young man will not struggle to get another woman. You mightn't believe that.
Man not struggling.
You might not believe that. But all of this, all the tapes, the accusations, and the nah, you know it is not real. It's a fight down scene, right through them is a fight down scene. But that is one of them girl do that now, boy. What's going on? She trying to mess up the scene. She know how I check in for you now. And she find that I was checking for you too strong. So she trying to muddy the waters if you yeah. Boy, you're doing tonight. My head real hot right now. I just will go and blaze a little something and we will just chill. Yeah. I could pass for you now. Yeah, me ain't doing nothing. If you ain't doing nothing, I could pass for you now. Yeah, put on some clothes, I come in for you day.
Yo, this man is kicks, man.
Bet?
Listen,
Bet?
That's a fact. Like.
Jaron says he gonna be dry for the month. Jaron, he even dry for the day.
Do you mad?
He even dry for the day.
He mad. Hey. So, please, because when I was on Instagram, scrolling through my stories, see somebody post of the man. My boy booked a flight last night. I was in New York today. My boy not dry for no month. Best believe the man having birds right now. That man could be the worst man in planet right now. He having bird lineup still.
Listen. What was the guy, the swindler, the Tinder swindler, whatever?
Yeah.
He was swindling women of millions, got arrested. When he get out, everybody know about the man accusations. And they find out the man with some rich woman in some one of them European countries again. One of the local Zessa youth had an attempt on his life. Girlfriend died. Educated girl. A couple months later, another girl on his arms. No problem. Not a problem. Some people were saying, no other girl going and go with he. Yeah, you want a dead girl? No girl go with he. When? How?
No. You know what's funny, Nathan?
Yeah.
Some shit that I need to go to Twitter. You'll go to Twitter and see how them 23-year-old girls are going for Ted Bundy. And tell me if Ted Bundy is alive today on the charges he was on, he's still getting birds today. So make it worse that that guy, the archangel, he do as 20 times worse as Ted Bundy. He have given one time. That let me free, man. Like stop. That make no sense.
And somebody says he can get sued for the recordings. I don't think any of the girls in those recordings wants to highlight themselves like that necessarily. Most of the times when revenge recordings are sued about is ex is boyfriend girlfriend thing. I don't mind the whole world knowing that you sent out my business because the whole world know already. But if you're just one of the girls inside of that, you want to be the one girl whose name is Becky Sanders, and Rebecca James Sanders has launched a court case against so and so for releasing and now everybody going and go online and go on the little internet sites and search for Rebecca. No girl wants to be. Listen, if I was advising the girls, I might advise them it probably isn't even worth it to sue like that.
No, them let's hush them out. Hush them out.
You as a man need to set standards, agreed. Who's Ted Bundy, a serial killer? What about when the Jeffrey Dahmer series came out? Lots of women swooned over him over his pick. Yes, that is true. Just as they saying one of them, hey, I'm not reading that. I'm not reading that. Jaron, no, I don't think she did. As far as I know, she didn't. Mr. Tifed says they will have to look into themselves to know if they're serious. There is case law with the cricketer. Yes, Lyndon Smith, I know. With was it Lendl? It was Lendl. Lendl Simmons and the lady with the interesting surname. And yes, she won, as I was saying. But that was his ex. That wasn't a fling. He was with her and they broke up. He got vexed. He did what he did, allegedly. And she sued about that and won. That wasn't someone that was a maybe one night stand that she was trying to hide. She wasn't one of the groupies that he met when he was in Jamaica or Barbados or on tour. Generally speaking, if you're a passing fling, you don't want your name sealed around the nation for that. Yes, Z-Grade. Yes, that lady self. I know, Lyndon Smith, I'm not talking about whether they could sue him. I am talking about I don't think that they would. I don't think it would be in their benefit to sue him. Like, even if they do sue and win monetarily, which might be difficult to prove. You would have to prove that you were the one in all of these videos that didn't know and didn't consent and all that. But even if you could prove that and you sue him, remember that lady's name who sued Lendl Simmons. I remember her name, first and last, full government name. Full government name.
Exactly.
So you have to know that if you are one of those girls in that video and you want to sue, Trinidad is going to know your name. Do you want Trinidad to know your name for that reason?
Yo, like, I always remember this morning, I was talking to my girlfriend, and I was saying, I was telling she about Trinidad because she's not Trinidadian. So, I was telling she, this is Trinidad and Tobago. Your reputation, your rep. Your rep in this country, nobody does forget your rep.
Yeah.
Your rep, God, that's what your life. Because once your rep all day is licks.
Yep.
One of the girls on TikTok was in that video. And she locked down her whole profile instantly. It's still private. She better keep it private. Don't even look to sue nothing. Because if your government name all day, people licking down your reputation. That is it. Full blast. That'll make no sense. Like madness, but you'll go strong with your lawsuit if you want. Do you think?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that they can't. Maybe some of them could, but I just don't see it generally happening. One of these days, them gal go put him up. You might get something. as many people have pointed out, Mr. Tife, the reality is there are a number of guys like that out there. There are a number of guys like that out there. Many women, I saw someone say this on Facebook, and it's true. Many of the women who are insulting some of those young girls sat in one of those car seats already. They sat in a car seat with a guy with a over 100 kind of number like that. They sat in a car seat with a over 100 guy. Many girls have. You see, for a guy who racks up 200, 300, 400 kind of numbers, many of those girls might have 3, 4 as their number, you know. I hope I don't have to read and spell too much. Many of those girls might have 3 and 4 as their number, but he has 400 others. So, there are many other young ladies who are in just that position. So, when you're saying one of these days, them girl go put him up and think, yeah, they might, but it happens. It happens. You know how much players get put up in the time? You know how much players dodge from bottle, and it hasn't stopped the players yet. Players gonna play. This is the definition on Zest, yes? Get rich, new gal every day. Now, that's not a good definition, because at the end of the day, I don't know about other guys. Maybe for some fellas, that's the life you look at and you want to live, but that doesn't seem very appealing to me. That's not my idea of a good life. How are you going to get stability out of a life like that? Okay, you could live enjoyably in some of those ways until you're 35. You, as a man, you could probably live it till 60, but after 50, it starts to look real pathetic, and it's not nearly as fulfilling. So, to me, that's not fulfilling. To me, it's not. Maybe to some guys it might be, but to me it's not. And I think if you look at the general evidence you see out there in the world, it seems kind of obvious that it is not a fulfilling life. And part of the problem with some of those things is sexual perversion. Involving yourself in any vice too much. The nature of how humans work is you don't stay at one point. So for some of you guys who are into your websites, you'll recognize that those websites start from soft, and there's a spectrum going to very strange, extremely weird. And you're like, what? How a guy reaching to wanting to see cockroaches drink milk and that turning him on? What going on there? Well, he reached that point because he overexerted himself in perversion. So some of those things, okay, you want to play player, and reach 500 women, and then you find women stop doing it for you. All right, bro.
Hey, don't say that, bro. Come on, don't do that. Don't do that, bro. Come on, that's not good.
And just so you know, for both men and women, the most enjoyable sexual experiences generally recorded are in long-term monogamous relationships, because obviously human sexuality is something that a stranger isn't ideal to get done for you. To not get too graphic. That Great says, bro, big man thing, random, eh? Anybody ever tell you you look like Andre 3000? Actually, yes. I have heard that before. Australian Kiss. Australian Kiss. What kind of name is that? What movie that joke was from? Okay, Australian Kiss. Yeah, the escalation indeed, Massimo says. We need to share light on these topics for the youth. Jazz says, I agree. Mr. Says that's not true at all. What's not true, Mr. I don't know what you're talking about necessarily. Monogamous is not natural for a man. Oh, good grief. Oh, you're one of those. You're one of those. Aren't you? You're one of those, aren't you, Mr. Monogamous is not natural for a man. What is natural? When you say natural, Mr. What do you mean by natural? Because naturally, we don't defecate in toilets. That's not natural. Houses are not natural. Naturally, if we just fulfill our full natural desires, well, in some mammals, naturally, they kill the offspring in order to mate again. That's natural. Some mammals, many mammals, kill the offspring to mate again. So why not? Natural.
Yeah, because
That's the word for that is asinine. The reason is because you cannot just exist in the natural state. That's what separates us from the other animals. So yes, you are right. Men have a higher sociosexuality. Men have a higher appetite for more variance in sexuality. You are right. True. That's natural. But the men that give in to that natural urge ruin their communities and their cultures and their societies for it. So, yes, some black men, they love to live up to that natural urge. And they are ruining their communities for it. So, Mr. I really hope you are not a black man out there preaching anything about black power and raising the black legacy and black wealth and black generational wealth. I really hope you are not one of those out there talking that and then coming to talk about polygamy is the natural way for man. I really hope you are not.
well, I think that's where you're going up. But you see, this is how I say it, because the retort to that is polygamy is the natural way for men, and what I'm saying is this. If people understand this, human beings know how to pay a bond. We can pay a bond. Just like how swans pay a bond, we can pay a bond. So monogamy, most normal for human beings. We have done it. We have done it for a long time. If you read, because since you want to talk about black people, I love it. In Egypt, monogamy was the standard. Only royals, nobles could engage in polygamy. Understand this. Egypt was a high civilization on monogamy. So, no guys, monogamy, very normal, very natural stuff. Don't think you could walk around here making 15 babies and 15 women and feel that's great. Nick Cannon carries all them children, and Nick Cannon and have no compounds to make no proper society. Let's be real.
Mr. He never said we came from Egypt. He was making an example. He never said we came from Egypt. And to me, the reason I have zero patience for it is because I find that the argument for this is done. And I find it's so insane to me that the community that could least afford to do this is the community that seems to be embracing it the most. The community that has been suffering from fathers not being present in the life of their children for decades is the community now that wants to talk the nonsense about polygamy. I'm a black man with 2 wives. Listen, monogamy, I've made this point before, but for anyone who studies history, if you look at the wealth of the world, there's a point where the wealth of the world was like this, and then it went like this. That's when monogamy was accepted as the general societal norm. When monogamy was accepted as the general societal norm, this happened. And just bear in mind, like men talk about natural and what men want. No woman wants to be part of a harem, you know. The point that high value men make is that women will accept it because they want me, but it's not what they want. So even in this situation, you're saying this is what I want, but you are very obviously admitting that's not what my 2 wives want. That's not what they want. They don't want to share you. That's not they don't wake up in the morning saying, I'm happy I'm sharing my man. No woman does that. Monogamy only came to you from the Catholic Church. All right. And polygamy came to you from the ancestors who sold you into slavery after their sons that came from different mothers fought for the kingdom. That's where polygamy came to you from. So if my choice is between kingdoms that were monogamous and stood the test of time for 2,000 plus years, or polygamous kingdoms that had one good war chief and then his sons blew it apart and sold each other for slavery, it seems like a no-brainer to me.
Yeah, but you see this argument about Islam. Here's the thing. let me be clear, and Nathan might not like this, but I'm not really against polygamy necessarily. I am really against y'all trying to enact polygamy in a weird way, in some weird fashion. Islam have certain laws. Islam is a religion. Islam have principles and values. Islam does not run rampant in the streets with polygamy. They do not. They have strict rules and guidelines. That's how it's able to stand firm. And here's the thing. Y'all in the West, y'all who run on Sharia law, y'all who run on Islamic law. Y'all in a modern world, very modern, very sexually liberated. Let's be real. Y'all can't even marry two women in most Western countries to begin with. But y'all feel you're about to have, 20 women in a stable? Is this WWE? No. Forget that. Marry a one woman, move her along in life, make some babies, build families.
And you'd notice a lot with the polygamy is a lot of those men who talk about polygamy. It's not like they're faithful to the polygamous wives either. So it's not like I just want variety. It's that I'm indisciplined. I cannot control my pleasures. I cannot control my vices. And a young man who isn't in control, and not even a young man, a man at all who isn't in control of himself is a dangerous man. And he's a man who would very swiftly find himself in trouble. Now, women could, listen, and this is a lesson for young men. Women can get away with being out of control way more than a man can be. An 18-year-old girl could get emotional to the highest level she wants to get, scream and lose it, and chances are somebody might hug her by the end. I was watching a video today, some girl starts to trip and lose it and cuff up a man in a restaurant and slap him up and screaming, and the man just take his slap and walk off, and then her girlfriend run and try to stop and hug her and say, oh gosh, you okay? She just slap up the man, you know. If as a man, you are out of control emotionally and you do the same, you are going to end in jail, if not dead. So the control of yourself is very important. It's extremely important. Jaron VC says, we're fighting polygamy and just 2 weeks we talking about $200 dates. Imagine sharing $200 among 5 wives. Holmes says you all prefer have one wife and horn she all about have outside children but against multiple wives. Polygamous relationships do not have a higher rate of fidelity than monogamous relationships. In fact, they have a lower rate. Google it. Google polygamous relationships and fidelity. Listen, if a man is so indisciplined that he cannot stay, he professes he cannot stay with one woman, is he going to stay with 2 or 3 or 4? Wouldn't that limit just be the limit that he can acquire? No, by using the reasoning that we give here, if the man's taste is more variety, his taste isn't 2. His taste is more variety. Why would he stop at 2? Why? Your taste is more variety. Why limit yourself to 2? Like, I don't understand that, Mr. Why would someone who believes in polygamy and I like variety limit themselves to 2? Is it that you're only able to get 2? Is only 2 women want you? If more women want you, won't you go for more? I have a taste for more. Or is it that 2 women are enough to satisfy your desire as a man? Because I could say if as a man you're unbridled, I don't think 2 would be enough. The enough for an unbridled man might be somewhere up 4 billion.
No, but here's the evidence phase. Solomon had 300 wives, but he had 900 concubines. For what reason? He had less wives than concubines. Be for real today, man. Be for real. And we're talking about a man who was wise. He asked God for wisdom. But he took 900 concubines, but 300 wives. Be for real, man. Let me be free. Come on,
man. That's the thing. I would like to know. Why stop? if my appetite and taste is for variety, why would I stop at 2? Massimo asks, do you have any thoughts on pro-natalism? I am a pro-natalist. I'm a pro-natalist. I am pro-babies. I do not like the anti-natalists out there. I do not trust them. People who think that the earth is overpopulated, well, someone who thinks that thinks there should be less people. In fact, basically, they think some people should be dead. That's basically your thought. And how we get to the less people is always a problem to me. So, and when you look at it scientifically, there is no proof to say that. The antinatalists have been saying the same antinatalist thing since the world was a quarter of the size it is right now. There was a guy in the 80s made a bet to one of the antinatalists who was saying that the earth, we would have too many mouths to feed. And he was making a bet that the food stock of the world is going to double in the next 10 years. I believe his bet was surpassed because it further than doubled after that. The more people we get, the more things we do. I think I'm pretty pro-natalist in that sense. However, I also think that educating people on parenting is extremely important because we tend to have in the West, a problem we tend to have, well, all over the world, but in the West we see it hyper-focused, where wealthier, more educated people tend to have less to non-children, and poorer, less educated people tend to have more. That's not exactly the best outcome. Something I hear that seems a little strange to me when I hear people say things like, well, I don't want to have any children because the world getting scary now. I go and be a scary world for my children. To me, by saying that, you're kind of making the world scarier. If you're saying that, okay, I have the wits about me, I know what is scary, what is not scary in this world, well then you should be trying to make some children to make the world a little less scary. Massimo says, yeah, though one must give a nod to economic liberalization as well, assisting with that bet, as that was the focus of the bet, I believe. I know men with multiple children with 4 wives. Yes, that is true. JR says, Nathan, bro, I really felt to try an experiment for 2 babies for each of the... But why stop at 4, Mr. Face? Why stop at 4? Why 4? That's a very abstract number. Why stop at 4? Why is there a number to stop at?
He trying to still fit in the Islamic.
I understand what he's trying to fit in, but I'm not asking a scholarly view of it. I'm asking his view of it because he's attempting to defend it here. So why stop at 4? All different races, JR. There aren't only 4 races in the world. So if you're looking for all different races, you have way more than 4 to go. I mean, there are the native populations of North and South America, and within the native populations, there are sub-races too, so you could probably get about 6 different races out of the native populations. But then there are the Pacific Islanders, Maui, Hawaii, those Tahiti, those people, there are different races and subcultures in there. You get some of them. Then there are the Aboriginals from Australia. You get some of them. And then in Indonesia, what's the Sentinel Island? You have to get a Sentinelese. That's a unique DNA. That's unique DNA. Unspoiled for thousands of years. You must get Sentinelese. But then there's Mongolian. But then there's Han Chinese. But there isn't only Han Chinese. China has lots of sub-racial groups also. Don't let the Chinese fool you. There are many different kinds of Chinese. There are dark-skinned Chinese. Oh gosh, there are many. 4 is what I personally could handle. Oh, so 4 is all you could handle, JR? Z-Grade says, don't forget Douglas is a race too. Well, if you're going to the mixing, you could have Indian Negro mix. You could have Indian Chinese mix. Could have Negro Chinese mix. Could have Negro White Indian. Ooh, the mixes, and then the mixes could mix. What if an Afro Chinese woman goes with a Pacific Islander who married a European, you know, really mix them in there. Four is what I personally could handle. I read that comment, JR. I read that comment. Little Miss Me says JR is making children for all of us. Some of us don't have to. I don't. That's what I'm saying. I don't get the reason. And Nathan, you need to expose yourself to Muslims who practice polygamy. I did. My uncle. Let me just put it this way. I know. I am very exposed. I am very more exposed than you may believe. JR, that's too much mixing. I'm leaving that for Penta. I just went for. Why? To me, if the limit isn't 1, why is the limit 4? I find that just abstract. Why the limit shouldn't be 7? I find 7 songs like a good limit. 1 per day. That sounds like a good limit. 7. But Mr. Homeface, don't ask questions that we spent about half hour answering now. We spent half hour answering this question and you come back from start. Anybody with further questions? Mr. Homeface is spinning in circles.
Yeah,
this was the first answer we answered. Stop trying to create more kids, Massimo says. Mr. Homeface, we answered this question already. You're spinning in circles. If you want to have this discussion, come in the chat. Let me hear you. Let me hear your voice. Try to express this nonsense. Let's hear you vocalize it. Whatever happened to the Paria incident? Well, the commission of inquiry went on into it, and the commissioners received their millions of dollars for it. And I believe a report was formulated, and the report is there. You can go read the report. That's the incident from Paria. I don't know what else anyone expected from this. When people asked for a commission of inquiry, I was like, why? So we could give more government friends millions of dollars for them to type up a piece of paper that's going to mean nothing at the end of the day? What do you think about the recording of Farley? Tony, I think that recording sounds bad. I think the recording sounds real bad. I hope Mr. Farley's excuse is that recording was an AI fabrication, because you know you could do that with AI now. I hope it's an AI fabrication, because that sounds real bad. And what makes it probably worse for him is that this would have to be someone from his inner circle. If indeed it is a leak, it would have to be someone from his inner circle leaking that.
Correct.
What recording? There was a recording allegedly of Mr. Farley allegedly planning to use state funds to allegedly help party organizers, pay them for them to do work for the party also. That's what the recording seemed to suggest he was doing. Seemed. It's Nathan. There's no EL at the end. Do you think stand your ground laws can work here in TNT? Yes. I say yes, because I think by and large Trinidad, in how we prosecute the law, we prosecute stand your ground laws already in Trinidad. I do not see in Trinidad and Tobago someone in their home, if they do have a legal firearm and a burglar breaks in, they shoot the man and police arrest them. That's just not how Trinidad and Tobago generally goes. So I do think it can work. The problem isn't the stand your ground part to me. The problem is how you get more firearms into the general public. That's the problem. How to do that. Stand your ground, I think, because as I said, I don't think Trinidad has too much controversy for that. I don't think we have the appetite for that controversy. Someone breaks into your house and you shoot them, by and large in Trinidad and Tobago, there isn't much mercy for those people. But the part is, how do we get legal gun ownership? That's the more difficult part, I think, not the stand your ground. That's why when I spoke about the stand your ground from the opposition proposing it, I was like, as grand as it sounds, I don't know if it's a promise that means anything, because if we put stand your ground legislation into the parliament, that means nothing in Trinidad and Tobago. What am I going to stand my ground with, a 2x4? So
exactly. It's how you are going to stand your ground, because here's the thing. Yes, your property is your castle. Yeah, the thing about it is, how are you about to stand your ground? You can't stand your ground when a criminal enter your house with a beretta and you have a knife. They're not standing your ground necessarily. Come on, be for real, guys. So the question is not about stand your ground legislation. The point is, how and what would you use to stand your ground?
Jazz asks why are certain things legal in some countries and illegal in others? Because different cultures have different views on morality. So there are some cultures where the age limit on marriage is different. You can't force that. There are some cultures where gay marriage is legal. There are some cultures where gay marriage isn't a thing. The marriage is between a man and a woman, and gay people cannot marry. There are some cultures where they believe a 5-year-old could decide whether they're a boy or a girl. There are some cultures where a 13-year-old girl could decide to cut off her breasts. I mean, cultures have different views of what is right and wrong. So that's just the reality of it. Zedgrade says stand your ground laws means going after them on your property, though. No, that is not what stand your ground laws mean. Stand your ground laws are referring to the right to the requirement to retreat, because in many countries, I believe in Trinidad and Tobago, we have a justifiable force requirement right now, so that if someone attacks you, you have a right to use justifiable force in self-defense. While what stand your ground says is, if you are in your house, if this is your house or a place that is considered yours, like your vehicle or something like that, you have no duty to retreat. In other words, I don't have to run away from an attacker. If an attacker enters my property, I have the right to defend my property. There's no requirement to retreat. Exactly. So, I actually think that's a good thing. Like, when I hear people talk about this law and they're like, this law is going to allow the Indians to kill more black people in Trinidad and Tobago, I'm like, what are you suggesting? This law would allow people, if you're saying what you're saying, this law would allow people to kill someone who's an intruder on their property. So are you suggesting that the black people are the intruders on the Indians' property in Trinidad and Tobago? Because that seems what you're suggesting when you say something like that. Like, if you don't go illegally into someone's home, why does it bother you if they could kill someone in their home? I know there's no requirement to retreat, Sylvan, and that's why I said our requirement is justifiable force or something like that effect. That's our requirement. I said that. I was speaking about in the US, they have requirements to retreat, different levels of requirements. Hi, good morning. I now join your conversation. I am proud to say I have 7 wives and happy. Okay, good for you. Too much crime and problems, not that hard to fix. Jazz, I think a lot of the problems are harder to fix than some of us think. So I think some of the problem might be that we aren't fully aware. No, read before saying, all right. As a pronatalist, at what amount of children should a couple stop trying? Oh! Now see a question, Massimo, sorry. At what number? Bro! I am a pronatalist guy. But I also fully understand that in the dimorphism of human anatomy, I carry no babies. So, as pronatalist as I might be, the person that says when stop is the person that, you know, has to carry. Like, I find it's not really my business. Like, okay, we have the discussion, we want kids, yes, good. If you go through the process and you tell me, hey, after 2, I feel I could go more in. Like, bro, how am I going to tell you now you have to go more? Like, what? How is that going to work? If you say 2 is 2, if you say more, well, More. So for me, Massimo, I feel the limiting factor is the woman. Yes, to me, the limiting factor is how much children the woman generally wants to have. To me, that's the limiting factor. Go forth and multiply and replenish it and mind the kids too. I agree, JR. I agree. JR says we have a miserable self-defense. I don't know if that's true, JR. How often in Trinidad and Tobago does someone get in trouble for defending themselves? I don't think that's a regular thing. I don't think regularly you hear in Trinidad that a robber came to someone and they defended themselves and now they're in trouble. I just don't think I've heard about that regularly. And that's why I'm saying, again, the problem to me isn't the stand your ground legislation in and of itself. The problem is how do you get the defensive weapons, if firearms are the ones we are looking at, how do you get them legally into the hands of citizens? The limit is 2 for 1 wife, so 4 wives, 8 perfect number. Wow, GR. Wow. Sylvan Trinidad says, what about the parent ability to provide for the kids? Well, yes, I think that's a given. But I also think that in modern times, we exaggerate the need of provision. Here's an interesting statistic. Men who win the lottery tend to have more children and marry if they're single. Women who win the lottery tend to leave their husbands and have less children. So, to me, what that seems to obviously suggest, that part of the limiting factor for children has nothing really to do with money. And the reason I say that is humans have been reproducing and making more humans since we lived in swamps, crawling around the place. I am not saying have children if you are in terrible situations. That's not what I'm saying. But I am saying the amount of resources, money resources, needed to raise a child, I think is exaggerated. If you have the time, you have the resources. If you don't have the time, you don't have enough time. That's the way I see it. Just as an investor, I spent years training to be a good provider, which is smart, I think, which is smart. And I think the thing is, in a pronatalist system, you'd inevitably go back to much more gender roles, you know. That's just reality. In a pronate, if you're against gender roles, then generally you'll be anti-natalist. One of the most important things to keep women equal to men, at least generally, is to make sure they don't become mothers. Women are the only people that can become mothers, and mothers cannot function the same way men function in the workplace. JR says I'm in support of gender roles. So am I, JR. So am I. Yeah, Trini Hotel.
But Nathan, and I think it was either Judith Butler, second wave feminism, that wanted to ban women becoming mothers. Mm-hmm. I believe so. Second wave feminism wanted to ban women from becoming mothers. Yes. So if people really look at how a movement operates in that kind of way, why you think they want to ban women from making babies and mothers? Of course, to get the equality that they want.
And bear in mind, some of the strongest pushers of that kind of feminism, thank you very much, Jar. Some of the strongest pushers of that kind of feminism were industrialists. Because to industrialists, a woman who could work just like a man is perfect for them. They don't want you to be... There's a place in India, I can't remember the village, I was reading about this, where young women, do hysterectomies at an amazing rate. Because if they could prove they have a hysterectomy, they're more valuable farm workers. Because they don't get a period, and they wouldn't get pregnant. So people hire them and pay them more. That is why the industrialists loved feminism. Because this is something I always find strange. When you look at a lot of the statistics people talk about with the economies and the and our gross national product or GDP or GNP and all of that nonsense, you you regularly hear people talk about, well, there are 40% of the women not in the workforce, and if those 40% of the women enter the workforce, it's going to increase the GDP by X amount. What do you think those 40% of women do? Like in the time where 90% of the women were not in the workforce, do you think those 90% of women did not work? Do you think that 90% of women were just lazy bums? No. They worked in the home. The home was the unit. That was the unit. That was it. The home. And the woman worked in there as part of the family unit, as part of the home unit. If the woman is not in the home doing that work, the home unit now requires someone else to do that same work. So, really and truly, that's why I'm saying a lot of it isn't the direct resources of money. A lot of it is time. Like, people talk about milk being expensive. What? Mommy makes milk from water and body fat for free. What you talking about milk expensive? Have you ever heard a lion, a bear, a otter, a whale for that matter, complain about milk prices? Do you understand what makes us a mammal? Primary school. There are certain characteristics of mammals. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that I don't understand there are some complications that make natural feeding. Yes, I'm getting there, Cardell. I understand there are some complications that make natural feeding more difficult. But something I find so very strange is that the women who, through some complications, are unable to breastfeed, and the children who, through some complications, are unable to take breast milk, somehow seem to multiply in the age when formula is available. Somehow, in the times gone before, where there was no formula, the amount of mothers that were unable to breastfeed and the amount of children that were allergic to breast milk was small. Strange. Very strange. You have to prepare for complications though. I'm not saying no, little Miss Mediator. I'm not saying no. I am pointing out a fact. A fact. And I would ask many people, I would ask quite a few of you all to think about this, and wonder if it might be that the company that is charging you $365 for a tin this big of milk has a vested interest in all of a sudden everyone believing that somehow breast milk is a very difficult thing to do. Another part of it, on the stage after breast milk, I remember a friend of ours, because I have a baby, a friend of ours was saying that, you know, our child, when they were at that stage, really liked the Nestum honey and oats. So, you know, you should get the Nestum honey and oats. Why do you get the Nestum honey and oats while you can buy honey, buy oats? And when you buy those two, make honey and oats naturally for your baby, the price might be 10% of the Nestum price. That's why I'm saying consumerism has made many people believe that children are more expensive than they actually are. Granny had 15 children and Grandpa made 50 cents a day. I am not suggesting that you go attempt to live that life, but I'm drawing some perspective to the matter. And all 15 children grew up real healthy. Real healthy. Healthier than the parents who raising one picnic alone. Granny raised 15 and none of them was allergic to a thing. They weren't allergic to a thing. And they living still, all in the 70s and arguing still. You raise one and they're allergic to the breeze. Think about it. Natural honey is not that cheap now. You're right, it's not. I agree, it's not that cheap. It's still cheaper than trying to buy Nestum honey and oats. all right, people. Trini Otep, any closing comments?
I want people to realize, consumerism is really a problem. Well, I mean, when you have crony capitalism, that tends to get that kind of way. That's why people make the argument that eating out in a restaurant is cheaper than buying food stuff to cook. So yeah, think about what you'll do, man. Think about what you'll do.
Word up. Little Miss Mediator, you are right. You are right. And I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree that some of the reasoning for some of this is that men are not fulfilling their roles. And even, here's what I think. Where you said grandpa built for houses and had for occupations. I don't think it's even just the literal resources in and of itself. But some men need to learn how to sell themselves better. Sell that you would be a hard worker. As I was saying with the young girls and the bad men, what they're looking for isn't the bad man. They're looking for the competence, the confidence, and the strength. Listen, there's a reason some fellas living in a shack could get pretty girls, because they could sell themselves real good. Bros, learn how to sell yourselves. And legitimately sell yourselves. I'm not talking about lie, but you'll work hard. Fulfill that gender role. Don't take on the nonsense. You be a real man, bro. Be that real man, fulfill the gender role. Be willing to work, and I will work if needs be, whole day, 24 hours, so that my wife and child could be taken care of. That's the kind of masculine attitude. Hit them that line, and you might get through like Redman too. All right, people. Thank you all for tuning in. This was nice. This has been the Mindful Life. I am Nathan Springer, your host. I enjoy doing this. We are on weeknights now. I wasn't on for the previous for the rest of the week previously. You know, there was my support staff. My support staff was a little under the weather, so you know we had some days off, some sick leave time. But we good now, so we're back, and I will be here again tomorrow for the next Mindful Live, which is going to be tomorrow, Friday, around that 9:30 p.m. time. Be sure to tune in, folks. It was nice. We'll do it again. Until then, see you guys later. I hope you're educated, informed, or entertained. That's all I have for now. Ladies, peace. Yeah, Cardell.